G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today we're going to have a look at one of the more interesting planes of War Thunder, and that is the Javelin. Yeah. We're looking at the Javelin today, ladies and gents. This thing, my god. It sat at 9.0, and it got up tiered 90% of the time. Now it's at 8.7, and sees down tiers about 60% of the time. It's much better. It's so much better than it was. Essentially, that little battle rating change has done so much for our little friend the Javelin here. Well, it's not really little, it's kind of bloody huge, but regardless, the Javelin is actually finding itself a little meta here. It's finding itself a little niche in the matchmaker, something that it's good at, and that's obviously the sign of a balanced plane. The Javelin is one of those planes that has really, really good acceleration and really, really shitty top speed. But at the same time, has fantastic energy retention. This is really cool. It can actually do something now. It's not like it can sort of sit and cry when an F-100 starts to pay some interest in it. It actually has something to throw against the planes that it faces. And obviously, I don't think this thing should face the F-100. I'll get that straight out of the way. I think the F-100 is equivalent to the MiG-19 PT. Regardless, what I'm doing here is a slightly different tactic to normal. You might just think, oh, he's just rushing. Well, I kind of am. Now, I'm fully down tiered, so that means that my top speed is more of a strength than a weakness. But what I'm doing here is I'm gaining speed, I'm redlining, and then I'm putting myself into a slight climb. Now, I'm trying to keep myself on the red line, not quite losing speed, but not gaining it either. And this means that I'm getting the most out of my energy. I'm putting the acceleration straight into altitude, and this does give me energy. This is probably the one plane that you can actually play as a prop in jets. You can actually sort of play it the way you play a prop, because your top speed is extremely limited. What you've got to do is you've got to convert it into altitude. It's kind of the reverse of a prop, but it follows similar concepts. As you can see here, I've got a MiG-15 behind me, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself into a slight vertical. The higher I go, I can put that afterburner to use. I can also put my extremely good acceleration from the afterburner to use against the MiG-15. The Meteor is the same, and this F2 Sabre is also the same. You can see I'm just breaking away from them. I can go as high vertical as I'd like, and I can see a Cougar there who's launched an air-to-air missile, and this is my cue to engage. I decide that at this point I'm going to let the missile sail by and then turn around to essentially dive on the opponents. Now, obviously, I don't want to dive too fast because, I'll overspeed, rip my wings, but at the same time, I'm looking to use that separation of altitude against my opponents. The issue is, with jets, is that jets can zoom climb up to 4,000 meters. Especially in 9.0s. We're facing F-86 F2s. The thing that the Javelin has is if you keep your speed, you can pretty much do a sort of reverse boom and zoom, if you will. You zoom climb. You keep your altitude in a straight line, you keep your speed, and if someone comes up towards you, you rope-a-dope. You go into a vertical, wait for them to stall out, fall back on top of them, and then shoot them down. It's a really, really unique playstyle, and I'm actually really glad that the Javelin now has something that it can use. It's kind of nice. It's kind of good to see, and you can see me here using air brakes to dive on this F-86. The reason why I'm going for the F-86 is, one, because he's at the back of the conga line, and that's the priority. You always go for the one at the back. And two, he's probably the more dangerous one. He can zoom climb to the highest, and he can sort of get away the easiest. I do a little bit of spray, and then look for the Meteor quickly. He's not going to give me anything to lean on, so I go into the vertical, and you can see the risk that I'm taking here. But the Meteor has pretty much just burnt all his energy in that vertical turn that he did, so I'm able to burst out of there really, really easily. And because everyone's turn fighting, I have free reign on everyone else. This plane works really well in a 1v1 situation, or if you have planes to back you up, basically. If you don't have anyone to back you up and you're in a multiple engagement situation, this plane is a bit shit, honestly. And that seems to be a running theme for rank 6 British planes. They work really, really well in a squad, but they work really poorly by themselves. And what we're going to do here is just chuck a little air-to-air missile on this Sabre, and we get a bingo. Beautiful, lovely little hit, and that's all she wrote for that one. But what else is there? There's 4 fire streaks, so does that mean 4 kills, maybe? No. I have no idea. Don't ask. I genuinely don't know what's wrong with fire streaks. They seem to be the worst missile in the game, but 2 of them will surely take him down. Now, at this point, I've gotten myself a couple of nice kills with mainly the missiles, and I'm looking to re-engage some other targets. Now, this MiG-15 looks like a kind of juicy one. He's turning, and one of the things that you do when you turn is you bleed energy, and the one thing that a Javelin needs is a little bit of an energy advantage, and if that's speed or a little bit of altitude, then that could be either. It's kind of fluid, actually. It's kind of a hybrid. It plays a bit like a Horton 229, actually, and I think that might just be a running theme for Delta Wing aircraft in the future. It might just all end up being Horton 229 fest, and you know what, that's kind of cool, because these planes are unique. They have their little vices, they also have their strengths, and the strength of the Javelin is its incredible energy retention. So if you play with a little bit of speed and a little bit of altitude in this case, because the Javelin does not have speed, you can actually pull off some pretty incredible stuff, as you can see in the previous dogfight. But now I've decided I'm going to chase a Vautour, and this is where the Javelin's real weak spot comes to shine. It only has a top speed of something like 1,030 kph. You really don't want to push it past that, otherwise you will get killed. You will rip your wings. But it looks like the Vautour wants to turn fight, and I managed to get a nice deflection shot. You could see, if you want, rewind that clip a little bit, and you can see that I angled my plane so that it was at 90 degrees to the wings. I angled my wings so that the gun convergence sprays along the fuselage. Because this plane has another weakness, which is its convergence. You can see me here taking a head-on with the MiG-15. If that was a Hunter, I would have had a kill because he overcommitted. I don't get anything from head-ons, and I don't think you should push head-ons in a Javelin at all because of the wings. You know, the guns on the wings converge at whatever you want, maybe 600 meters. Maybe you don't set a convergence, and maybe that's what you should do. But you only have 400 rounds, and honestly, I would wait for a better opportunity than a head-on, because let's face it, head-ons are a little bit 50-50, and on the other side of the coin, you also have the terrible gun convergence, so you need to do some funky aiming, and it's never easy. Maybe you can tilt the plane on its side, or maybe you could do some other stuff, but honestly, I just would not take the risk with it. I simply wouldn't. I think it's much better if someone's going to run from you to anticipate the run, sort of look like you're going to give them a profile shot and then turn away at the last second and then use your missiles. Because let's face it, the Javelin, if it can't if it can't run something down, then you may just use the missiles to force it to turn. That's exactly what I've done with this Ish. He's sort of coming in and he's coming up to a turn fight with me. I try and get a shot on here and get a beautiful one. In fact, the guns work sometimes. And honestly, I think you just need to get used to the way that the guns aim. Instead of looking at the cursor and looking at the reticle and aiming that, you should be aiming a little bit up or down. And that's kind of how the Javelin works. It's really strange. And it does take a lot to get used to. The thing I like about the Javelin is now it has a niche. It has a battle rating where it can actually do well. And it has competent opponents, but it doesn't steamroll them. And it doesn't get steamrolled anymore by things like the MiG-19. It doesn't constantly get up-tiered. I do think that the Javelin should not be facing supersonics at all, period, because it is just not up to scratch with them. Especially things that can first turn incredibly well, such as the F-100, the T2. It just does not stand up to them. But for the competition that it currently has, everything all the way down to the F-84G, I think this is really, really reasonable. The F-84G can almost outrun the Javelin in a straight line. And if it doesn't bleed all its energy, if it doesn't, rip its wings in the process, I'm pretty sure there is a way around the Javelin in the F-84G. But the best bit is, the Javelin actually is viable now. You have something as a British player to grind for. And that is extremely important. That is really good. We now have decent jets at rank 6 for Britain. So congratulations, Britain is no longer suffering. Thank you, Guardian. It actually works. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The Javelin is a fairly competent plane now. It's not meta. It's not overpowered. It's different, interesting, and it's something, especially if you haven't played, or if you've played a lot of the game and you're kind of bored, it might be something to get the hang of and to try out. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.